Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of The Bull and the Bear. I'm your host, Matt Clark. Glad you are joining me on this Wednesday. Thanks so much for that. You might notice that we've kind of migrated to a new YouTube channel, but by all means, check it out. We've got a lot of stuff on there, a lot more content than we had before. Encourage you to check out all of it. If you are listening to us via podcast, just a reminder, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Google Podcasts. Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a wealth of other podcast syndicators. If you're listening that way, leave us a review, leave us a comment. If you have questions, maybe there's a particular stock or something like that you'd like us to address, you can email us at thebullandbear@moneyandmarkets.com. Again, that's thebullandbear@moneyandmarkets.com. I'll jump right in today. I try to keep things a little brief today. I'm by myself, so I don't want to overload too much. But what I have to discuss is a little complex, but not too bad. And it involves cryptocurrencies, and more specifically Bitcoin. If you've been following the market, specifically the crypto market, you'll notice that cryptocurrencies have been relatively stable. Since a March drop-off, they rose a bit along with the rest of the market, but then have kind of leveled off around that $8,000-9,000 mark, pretty consistently. And that was until about Tuesday, yesterday of this week, where Bitcoin jumped exponentially. In fact, from its March low of about $4,900 and change to that price on Tuesday of over $11,000. It jumped about more than 120%. That's not necessarily uncommon given the market conditions that we're in. However, it has prompted some questions on what is the future of Bitcoin. It's a complicated question. It's not necessarily one that's easy to answer, but I want to look a little deeper into it. And of course, the rise in Bitcoin has a lot to do with, investors moving more towards Bitcoin as a safe haven, kind of treating it like gold. Or bonds or something like that to kind of guard against market volatility, economic downturn, things of that nature. So it's seeing it saw a pretty significant increase in its value. But how high will it go? Is it worth getting into? Let me address that a little bit here. First off, I think it's important to add some historical context here. In each of the last 3 years, this year, last year, and 2018, if you remember, Bitcoin reached this very similar threshold, about $11,500 on its value. It reached this 3 different times. And in 2 of those occasions, in 2018 and then 2019, it pared back significantly. In fact, it cut down to around $7,000 in both instances. So it's important to have that kind of historical context, because it could suggest that the 11,500 boundary is kind of a testing threshold for Bitcoin, and I think it is. I think it is. It is a high level. It is a ceiling that I think Bitcoin could find a little difficult to break through. Not that it can't. I just don't know that I see a lot of rationale behind why it can. You have to understand that the Bitcoin market right now is pretty heavily, geared towards buyers and not so much sellers. There a lot of the market is longing Bitcoin and other, cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and things like that. And again, I think the important fact here is that multi-year threshold that it reaches at around 11,500 is very important to understand. And I think you're going to see sellers become, if they're not already, quite a bit more bearish on Bitcoin, because inflows of Bitcoin aren't necessarily going up. Sending Bitcoin to a trading platform or exchange, if they were to go higher, would suggest that there may be some interest there. But the fact that they're really not moving, I think, indicates that there's a bit of selling pressure to Bitcoin. And I think what you can expect to see here is Bitcoin is going to probably drop off. Maybe not necessarily in the short term, but I think at some point it is going to drop back. Where that is, I don't know. I think 8,000, 9,000 is a good, I think it's tested that threshold very well and held its own there. Should you buy Bitcoin? I think that it's important in any portfolio that you are diverse. That's the thing that investment analysts and all sorts will tell you, that a diverse portfolio is a strong portfolio, because stocks go up and down, commodities go up and down, safe havens go up and down, and they don't necessarily move at the same time. So you want to try to find a way to hedge against one going down. And the case for Bitcoin being similar to gold is fairly strong. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you sink your entire safe haven, budget into Bitcoin. I think it's probably a good bet to own a little bit of gold and a little bit of Bitcoin, but not necessarily one over the other. I think long-term Bitcoin does have the potential to break out of that $11,500 threshold. I think it can break that ceiling. I think there's some factors that have to happen first before that takes place. But I do think that what we see here of Bitcoin, I don't think is any different than what we've seen in the past 2 years, arguably around the same time, the July, August, around that time where we saw Bitcoin jump, and then pare back. I think it was March last year. But in the same kind of time frame, Bitcoin, goes up exponentially, and then you see it come back down again as pressure persists, and they just can't crack the ceiling. I think Bitcoin is going to remain fairly volatile. I just don't see it having a lot of stability. And it's been volatile for a long time. It's not like me telling you it's volatile is something new, because it's not. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have always been volatile. But I think, as there's more economic pressure, as there's more pressure on the dollar, as stocks are still trying to figure out, what in the world is going on, I think Bitcoin is a worthwhile investment. I just don't. If you're looking for a short-term gain, it really just kind of depends on what your portfolio strategy is. If you're wanting something to buy and hold for a while and hopefully see some kind of value, I think Bitcoin could fit the bill for any of those, any type of portfolio strategy you might have. I just think you have to be cautious, just like with anything else. But I think even more so with something like Bitcoin, it's not as entrenched as gold. Gold is the safe haven. It is the king of safe haven. Silver, as we've seen, is starting to make a bit of a rise, and in fact, a pretty impressive rise. Bitcoin is still, I think, trying to find its footing. It's popular, especially amongst the younger investors and things like that. And that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But until we start seeing a balance between the buyer's market and the seller's market, I think there's just still a lot of pressure holding Bitcoin back. In fact, even as early as today, we've seen Bitcoin start to taper down a little bit and get closer back to the 10,900, 11,000 range, and go underneath that 11.5 ceiling that it's been at. So I guess in short, I'm not discouraging anyone to buy Bitcoin. I mean, if you want to buy into Bitcoin at its price now, I think that's fine. But I would probably encourage you to wait for this pullback to happen. I think it's going to happen here within the next 2 to 3 months, I would imagine, if not even sooner. And then buy at that point, because I think it's going to retest the ceiling again. I think it's going to, once it drops back, it's going to retest. It's going to have this regular up and down. At some point, it's going to have to decide it's going to break through the 11,500 barrier. And I think it'll happen. I just don't think it's going to happen nearly as soon as people think. I think it's going to taper back. A lot of analysts have suggested that it's going to pare back to even as low as $7,000 by year's end. I don't know if it's going to fall back that far. I don't see that, but I think it will fall back. So don't be scared away from Bitcoin. Don't treat it as a hands-off type of thing. I think it's a good hedge. It's not the hedge, but it is a good hedge to have. But just be cautious about your expectations in terms of a potential return, simply because of how much it fluctuates. And it's no secret. I mean, anyone who's examined cryptocurrencies in any way, shape, or form understands that the market is very volatile. It's just because there's a lot of newness to it, even still. And it's a market that is not necessarily priced the same way as equities or gold or silver or bonds or things like that. So those are a lot of factors to kind of digest, but I guess my bottom line is don't shy away from it. Don't spend all your money into it. But don't shy away from Bitcoin. Just understand what the expectation should be in terms of what your return potential is. So that's kind of where I leave it. I want to kind of keep it short today. So because Bitcoin is a very complicated thing to get into, and we've talked about it at length before. You can check out some of our other podcasts, some of our stories on moneymarkets.com to kind of see where we're at. I've been generally a little bearish on Bitcoin, but that's not to say that I'm against it, because I'm not. I think there's still some value to it. But again, I would read this as a temporary jump. If you're in Bitcoin and you're thinking of selling, now would probably be a good time to do it and realize some gains. If you're looking to buy, I would probably wait. I wouldn't jump into it right now. Of course, you have the halving that that happened a few months ago. You've got to factor all that in. So there's a lot of outside forces that you have to look at when you're thinking about investing in something like Bitcoin. So just be cautious and understand the risks of what you're going to get into with Bitcoin. Coming up at the end of the week, myself, contributor Charles Sizemore, and Money Markets Chief Investment Strategist Adam Odell will be on. We're going to have 3 stocks. I'm going to pick them out today, actually, and discuss a few and give you our takes and our thoughts on these companies, and let you know kind of where we think things are going to go. And then we'll move forward from there. We've got the week ahead that will be coming out as well this weekend, so make sure you pay attention to that. We'll let you know what's coming up on Wall Street next week, plus much more. We've got a couple new things that are in the mix that we're looking at as well. So until then, again, check out our YouTube channel. You can actually just type in Money and Markets and find us. It's pretty simple now. We've got a little customized URL that you can find our podcasts and all of our other videos at. If you want to listen to us on traditional podcast formats, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio. We're also on Spotify and about 20 other podcast syndicators. So make sure you check that out. Give us a review. Give us a comment. Love to hear from you. If there's a particular stock that you'd like us to talk about, again, like I've always said, email us, the Bull and Bear at moneyandmarkets.com, or you can actually leave a comment on our video or on our podcast channels, and we would love to hear what you have to say and hear maybe tackle a stock that you'd like us to get into and give you our insight and our analysis. So until next time, this is Matt Clark. I'm the host of the Bull and Bear podcast. Glad you joined me for this on this Wednesday. And until we speak again coming up later this week, safe trading.